Look, 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 let your angel sing. I ain't twisted, this ain't the Henny talking for me. This is literally Malcolm Little talking through me. I ain't possessed, this is just when spirit meets the flesh, and a revolutionary is born, nothing less. It's hard for me to cope with stress, especially when I see the world much different from the rest. I can't sleep, nightmares, waking up, cold sweat, wondering if I ever made it, will they do me like the rest? It's for my black souls who really too upset to rest, so they wander through my dreams. Please tell me what this means.
Cotton Club Radio.
Welcome to the Cotton Club Radio. I'm your host, Cotton Club. What's going on, family? What's good? I know it's been a little bit, but we back at it again. I'm excited for this one, and I think y'all gonna enjoy this one. Today's conversation is going to be a conversation that I think needs to be had. Today's topic is called, are school shootings a part of white culture, family? Unfortunately, this is a conversation that white media doesn't want to talk about. And I think people in general wonder about this conversation, but they don't break it down and go to the root so they can find the information they need to really thoroughly investigate this situation. So I did all the research, family. I think it's a fair question because we are seeing a huge increase in school shootings within the last 30 years, and no one seems to have an answer as to why. Even the statistics surrounding school shootings don't really give you a clear picture. Think about it, family. When you hear about a school shooting, the narrative surrounding it is always the same. You typically get a young person, preferably white, most often about 20 years or younger, coming from a middle to upper middle class background, and the kid is normally said to have a mental illness. I want to break that down from a more logical perspective because often these conversations surrounding school shootings, they get brushed under the rug, and white media doesn't really like to talk about it from a pathological perspective. They like to just use it as a lone wolf. Clearly, the statistics don't point that way. This seems to be something that's happening more consistent than they like to admit. But from a logical perspective, if logic is reasoning and correcting thinking aimed at distinguishing sound arguments from fallacy, then through logic, we can have a posed, solid question. What is going on in white culture that is causing young people to self-destruct and explode into violence that causes a school shooting? And does having a mental illness provide the right excuse? Let's keep it funky, family. Purchasing a firearm with ammunition, plotting, strategizing, planning a military-style assault on a facility housing multiple people, and then writing out a manifesto as to why you committed a massacre is strategic, calculated, cunning, and evil. But just saying someone has a mental illness doesn't tell the full story, and in fact, it goes very far as to hide the true story. And having a mental illness is broad. What does that even mean? What mental illness? Did this teenager have a medical record to support this? You'll find in many situations the perpetrator is online posting guns and ammunition, talking about who they gonna kill and what they gonna kill. All things associated with the culture of violence. I'm noticing that there's an effort to conceal the violent undertone of mass shootings in white American culture. And even a complacency with the majority white community not wanting to even acknowledge that school shootings are an epidemic. And by the white community not addressing school shootings and the true reasons as to why, you find yourself in a situation where it's cutting off your nose to spite your face. They're starting to engage in a self-destructive behavior that becomes normalized, and no one questions it. Hence, why no one's questioning the school shootings. Why hasn't white society came out and openly questioned the whole mental illness narrative? If you and I can call cap on the whole mental illness narrative, then why can't they? See, people have to understand, the black community been hearing about these school shootings for a long time. And all of these things are sounding the same. Every last one of these dudes, they all say the same thing about these cats having a mental illness. And if you would see black people face when we hear that, we know it's cap. We're like, why aren't they getting down to the real reason why this dude loaded up his AR and went and killed innocent children? What is the cause of this, man? Because you can't keep blaming the black community for all the violence going on in America. At one point or another, white people are going to have to start addressing white on white crime. Also, white degeneracy and white violence going on in their communities. See, this is, now we got to put you under the microscope because your news talks about black people all day, black men doing this, black women doing that. But let's talk about you. In 2023, approximately 36,251 middle-aged white men between 35 and 44 overdosed and died on crystal meth because it was mixed with fentanyl. Let's continue. What are the other crimes that are unaddressed in the white community? Fraud is currently at an all-time high in various sectors. The healthcare, mortgages, social security, insurance. These types of frauds involve deception. Embezzlement in the white community is very high and occurs. People have misappropriated funds or assets that they have been entrusted with. Money laundering is high in the white community. Illegal trading on stock exchange to gain advantages using confidential information. I find it interesting that white society often points fingers at black criminality, shifting all the attention on us. Meanwhile, embezzlement, money laundering, stealing millions and millions of dollars from mostly other white people. And you would think white society would put this on notice. No one's talking about that. See, when you got privilege, you can talk about the splinter in my eye when you have a tree trunk in yours. Let's talk about some more unaddressed issues in the white community. Pedophilia. Let's talk about some raw numbers since they like to talk about per capita. In federal sentences, data from 2021, white people accounted for 57.5% of sexual abuse convictions and 74.6% of child pornography convictions. That's high anywhere. Why no outrage? I don't hear nobody talking about that in the white community. What I'm getting at is, it seems like white society has agreed upon not airing out their dirty laundry and solely focusing on the big black boogeyman in the black community. And this is what white privilege looks like. To have the privilege to hide behind a fake persona of white perfection while harboring degeneracy and violence within their own communities. Damn, Cotton Club, you going all the way in. Listen, if terms like baby mama is synonymous with black culture and the lack of having black fathers in the household, then with the same measurement, school shootings are synonymous with white culture, white dysfunctional households, and bad parenting, which leads children growing up with isolated social awkwardness. This involves an intense fear of being embarrassed, humiliated, or rejected in social settings. People with this condition may avoid social situations, leading to even more isolation. It's the isolation that makes kids more accessible for being brainwashed on the internet. You understand what I'm saying, family? This is how you'll see these little white boys being recruited by white nationalists to carry out crimes, like anti-black crimes or school shootings. All in all, school shootings, I believe, are part of a larger network of white supremacist incels. White media plays dumb. White society acting dumb like they don't know what's going on. We read the manifestos. We see the videos on the internet with these MAGA dudes talking crazy. You understand? So we're going to have to do some reshaping of this framework so we can understand where this insidious behavior of a school shooting is really coming from, family. So while addressing the topic, are school shootings a part of white culture? Yes, and I can prove it. One of the biggest indicators to me that school shootings part of white culture is their need to hide the statistics. Family, when I was researching school shooting statistics, they're burying these statistics. And you know what's really interesting? When you're looking at black statistics, they know all the numbers. I mean, they know the time, they know the block, they know how many people got killed. They know per capita, they know the raw numbers. But when you start looking up school shootings, all of a sudden things get conflated. You start seeing words like mass shootings, gun violence. Mass shootings, that's specific to just, 4 people or more people getting killed? That's its own category. Then you have gun violence. That's very broad. These are separate topics, but when you're looking for school shootings, they'll conflate these terms. And this is done to obscure and avoid the pathology of school shootings in white culture. So the dominant society feels the need to not make school shootings a specific issue that requires real investigation. Mainly because many school shootings can be a result of domestic terrorism. And this is the reason why white society doesn't want to address it, why they even want to avoid it in totality, because they don't want to address the grueling undertone of white violence, anti-black blackness, anti-Semitism, white supremacy, ruling in the center of white culture that eventually will turn into violence, even on itself. I mean, it's gotten so bad that even when I was doing research about school shootings, even AI won't talk about school shootings connecting it to white kids. And that's weird because everybody knows that school shootings are done mostly by white kids. So you know white supremacy is the real artificial intelligence that's embedded in AI. I don't think it's a coincidence when researching school shootings, nothing is clear. Everything is inconsistent, mixed with terms that really ain't got nothing to do with school shootings, gun violence. Ultimately, by putting all these terms into one, you're basically saying anybody could be a school shooter. But the statistics don't prove that to be correct. Statistics proves that school shootings and mass shootings are done mostly by white kids. So they'll call a shooting in Chicago where 3 people got into a shootout and they'll call that a mass shooting. You understand? Gun violence encompasses the harm and death caused by the use of a firearm, including homicides, assaults, suicides, and incidental shootings. But I find it interesting, white media is always making gun violence synonymous with black people. But I want to talk about the school shooting situation a little deeper, because when it pertains to school shootings, you'll see it's always a lot of victimology, where the perpetrator becomes the victim. Victimology is the study of the victim of a crime and the psychological effects of their experience. This is what they'll do with the white school shooter. Instead of talking about how they plotted, planned, purchased all kinds of weaponry, took time out to write a manifesto and do all and carry out their crazy ass crime, white media will suggest that the individual experienced bullying and may have had some adverse effect of some kind of medication, or the individual had mental illness, deliberately bypassing the fact that the individual was affiliated with a white supremacist national group or was recruited by an online white supremacist group. Ultimately, what this does is it takes accountability away from the individual. Making the perpetrator a victim is dangerous, especially in the case of school shooting, because the carryouts are so brutal. We just saw a school shooting just a few weeks ago with some dude who ran up into a school and killed children. And then they said he was suffering from gender dysmorphia. Like, what the? There has to be a line drawn where I ain't really trying to hear none of that, dude. And for the white community, most of these school shootings are happening in your community, so most of the victims are white. When are you going to say, all right, I don't want to hear the mental illness narrative. I want there to be an investigation. I want to find out what made this person carry out this heinous crime and take away my family member. You have to step up and address this situation. Let me tell you what you're going to have to do, all right? So you can avoid these school shootings happening so much in your communities. Number 1, stop allowing your 16-year-old to have a AR-15, okay? A 15-year-old does not need to own a AR-15. And with ammunition, tons of ammunition. Number 2, clean your children's rooms, man. All right? I'm tired of reading about, because I've read hundreds and hundreds of these school shooting cases, and all the parents are starting to sound the same. Oh, I didn't know. Meanwhile, this dude had 50 racks of ammunition, 5 AR assault rifles, 6 handguns, 3 grenades under his bed, 3 flakjack bulletproof vests in his closet. People, clean your kids' rooms so you can see what's up in there. That's one thing in the black community you can find your moms doing, y'all. Your mom, after a while, your mom's, I remember coming home sometimes and my room would just be clean because your parents would just go in your room randomly. Like, like one of those random piss testers at your job. Like your parents would just randomly go in your room and just clean your whole room. You know what I'm saying? So if you had something in your room that was inappropriate, that's the first thing that was on your mind when you came home. You're like, damn, your whole room was spick and span. You was happy, but you was like, God damn, hope she didn't find, whatever. But that's a cultural thing, and you learn to respect it after a while. So in conclusion, I want to say this. It's essential to acknowledge and address the realities of white violence in our society, including the rise of white-on-white violence and white nationalism, by shining a light on issues, school shootings in particular, so we can foster a true understanding of white fragility, which in my eyes will help everybody work towards a future that rejects white supremacy and anti-black racism and favors a system of justice. That's all I got for you, family. It's the Cotton Club Radio. Holla at me.
King. Look, let your angel sing. I ain't twisted, this ain't the Henny talking for me. This is literally Malcolm Little talking through me. I ain't possessed. possessed. This is just when spirit meets the flesh, and a revolutionary is born, nothing less. It's hard for me to cope with stress, especially when I see the world much different from the rest. I can't sleep, nightmares, waking up, cold sweat, wondering if I ever made it, will they do me like the rest? It's for my black souls who really do upset the rest, so they wander through my dreams. Please tell me what this means.
Cotton Club Radio.